All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another live chat here during free agency week. Everyone can hear me okay? Let me know in the chat so I know that I'm not dealing with any issues with the audio or video. Hearing fine. Awesome. All right. So I'm sensing some frustration from you guys, understandably. After a flurry of moves on that first day, it's been pretty quiet here over the last couple days. Obviously, some moves elsewhere that have impacted the Chargers' plans, um, but nothing concrete from the Chargers in terms of what their next signing is going to be. Um, and like I said yesterday, I think you're sort of at that point where they're going to wait for the dust to settle. I was tweeting earlier about how much space they have left. I've done a little tweaking to it because I had to take $660,000 out because they've now hit the roster minimum requirements. That's no longer a part of the calculation. So I have them at about 17.5 million, a little more than that, to spend in free agency. That is factoring in all expenses, which includes about $7 million I budgeted for in-season moves, like, say, signing a guy off the street, Jaleel Adai, like they did last year, like that kind of situation where, you're replacing an injured guy who still counts against the cap, and the new guy would also count against the cap, and you have to budget for those kinds of moves. Factoring in all of the signings that they've made, and then also factoring in the net rookie compensation and they'll have to pay their draft picks. So $17.5 million, they have room to work with. But it's a situation at this point where if they wait and let the dust settle and let some of these bigger guys sign, they might be able to get a ton of value at several positions. That could include wide receiver too. Obviously, they have more pressing needs, primarily tight end and corner right now, left tackle too. But the more this drags on, the more I get the sense that they're going to go to the draft for a left tackle and try and find that young left tackle of the future that they really haven't had in Tom Telesco's tenure. So that's really where things stand. I got a couple things that I want to sort of get to from the jump that I want to sort of address and dive into, and then we can get into your questions here. Let me just make sure I tweeted this out so that people are joining. All right. Looks like we're good to go here. All right. So obviously late last night or early this morning, depending on how you want to cut it, Trent Williams went back to the 49ers. That was sort of expected. I think the Chargers would have had to come through with a massive offer, and I don't think they were ever going to pay that much for him. It was sort of a done deal. It was Trent Williams wanted to stay with the 49ers. He makes a lot of sense in their scheme. He played really well for them last year. So it was just a matter of sort of figuring out what the dollar figure was going to be, and they made him the highest paid left tackle in the history of football. About, I think it was $100,000 more than the Packers gave to David Bakhtiari. So just edged him out. But yeah, so Trent Williams is back there. So that was the big guy on the market that the Chargers could go after. Now they have other options if they want to go a veteran route. We've talked about all these names before on previous live chats. I've written about them on The Athletic. You've got Riley Reif, you've got Eric Fisher, you've got Alejandro Villanueva, you've got Bobby Massey, all guys over 30. Fisher's coming off an Achilles injury. I get the sense that they're going to go with the young left tackle in the draft. That's really where I think the roster construction is going. It makes sense. But if they feel like one of these guys is going to be able to continue to play at a high level despite being over 30, then it makes sense to kick the tires there. So yeah, I don't think it affected the Chargers because I thought that Trent Williams would make sense if they were willing to pay the money, but organizationally it was never something that really aligned with what they usually do. So not a huge change to the Chargers' plan in terms of that signing, but Trent Williams back to the 49ers had some impact on where the Chargers stand. We'll get to Mike Williams later. I'm going to get to Denzel Perryman first, then we can get to Mike Williams. So Denzel signed with the Panthers on a 2-year deal. with Brandon Staley's scheme, inside linebackers are not as important as, say, in Gus Bradley's scheme. You're switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4. Joey Bosa is going to be playing an edge role. Same with Chenna. So you really have two linebacker spots. So you don't need as much depth at linebacker. At this point, they have Kenneth Murray, they have Drew Tranquill, they have Kaiser White. That's a good start. Three guys that are all on rookie deals. So you're not really devoting a lot of cap space to linebackers, which is a smart way to team build. And I think they can sign a special teams type guy as a fourth linebacker. Maybe Todd Davis is a name I've thrown out there. Justin Hilliard in the draft as a kid from Ohio State who's played a ton of special teams. That's the kind of guy you're looking for, is that fourth linebacker. But the Rams didn't have particularly noteworthy linebackers, and they were not relied upon to do a ton in the scheme. So the Chargers are in really good shape in that area. So it never made sense for them to bring Denzel back. He had a great career here. Obviously, a physical, violent player, great against the run. Saw some improvements in his coverage. Just injuries prevented him from sort of getting to that level that he was probably capable of from a talent perspective. But bringing him back didn't make a ton of sense, just where in terms of the scheme that they're running now and where they need talent. I think they can use their cap space in other areas. And again, really good structure of the cap space roster-wise, having all three of your linebackers, not counting edge players, just inside linebackers on rookie deals. So Denzel Perryman gone. Chargers have plenty of depth there at the top of the depth chart. I think it'll be Drew Tranquill and Kenneth Murray as the linebackers there in base. And they do, it's a little different in nickel. They can take a lot of different guys off the field in nickel. With Gus Bradley's defense, when they went to the nickel package and brought on an extra corner, it was always the Sam linebacker that came off every time. With Brandon Staley's scheme, and this is where you can sort of start to see how multiple it is and how many different things he brings to the table. It's not necessarily the same guy. So sometimes he's taking off an outside linebacker. Sometimes he's taking off an inside linebacker. Sometimes he's taking off a defensive lineman to bring on and create space for that third cornerback. So there are going to be instances where you only have one inside linebacker in the field, consistently. And so having four guys there never really made a lot of sense. So Kenneth Murray and Drew Tranquill are at the top of the depth chart. Kaiser White is a rotational piece. And they're solid at linebacker. And like I said, I think they can bring one more guy on board as sort of a special teams depth, bottom of the roster type guy. All right, Mike Williams. Let's talk about Mike Williams, because you guys were on one today about him. Good Lord. Freaking out on Twitter. I love it, though. I love interacting with you guys. That gives me some happiness. I chuckle about it. But so I told you guys that they were not going to release him. It was never going to happen. I said it on here. I've written about it since December. It was just never going to happen. They think too highly of him as a player, and we can get into the production, whether the cap hit matches the production, all of those kinds of things. And there are arguments to be made on both sides, but they were never going to release him. So this was just a formality. It was the new league year was going to come, and this base salary of $15.68 million that he's playing on the 50-year option was going to become guaranteed. And what that means is that the Chargers can't cut him and save the cap space anymore. That money will be Mike Williams's regardless. They cut him, they don't save any cap space, and he still gets the money even if he signs somewhere else. So that is what it means when the salary becomes guaranteed. He's going to be on the team. He will be on the roster this year. Now, what are their options in terms of lowering that cap hit? I like to start by saying they don't necessarily have to lower the cap hit. Obviously, it makes sense because Mike Williams is not the 11th best receiver in the NFL, right? So his production does not line up with his cap hit, right? And that's what we've talked about. You want those things to align. So the way that you lower that cap hit is you extend him. You sign him to an extension. But as we've talked about, it takes two sides to agree to an extension. The Chargers can't, at this point, force him to sign an extension because they no longer have the leverage of cutting him or releasing him. Same thing. So Mike Williams could sit there and be like, well, my salary is guaranteed and I want to play this year out and see what happens this season. If I have a great season, then all of a sudden I'm due a massive contract and I'm making good money this year anyway, so I don't really want to do the extension. And then the Chargers are SOL. They can't do anything. Now, if they sweeten the pot and give him a good deal and extend him long-term and provide him some financial security for 3-4 years, then that gives Mike Williams some incentive. And what would happen in that instance is the year one cap hit on the extension would replace the 50-year option cap hit. This is exactly what happened with Joey Bosa last year. Joey Bosa was entering his fifth-year option year. They signed him to that extension in July. It was technically a 5-year extension because they added 5 years onto how long he was staying with the team. But the contract was a 6-year contract, and that first year of the contract, 2020, replaced his fifth-year option year. Now, in Joey Bosa's place, dropping the pen. In Joey Bosa's instance, right, he went from a $14.36 million cap hit to a $15 million cap hit because he signed the most expensive contract in defensive player history, right? But Joey Bosa's $14.36 million fifth-year option was below market value for him. That would have been a low salary for what he does on the field as an edge rusher at a premium position. In Mike Williams' case, the $15.68 million contract is above his market value. So when he signs his new contract, that would almost assuredly lower the 2021 cap hit from $15.68 million. Would it go to $7 million, $6 million? That would be my guess, somewhere in that region. So you're looking at savings of $8 to $9 million. That can happen at any point, right? They can create that space at any point. There is no restriction at this point on when they can do that contract extension with Mike Williams. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier. With the spending space they have, they don't have a ton of pressure to do the extension. You talk about all these teams that are restructuring contracts and trying to move money around to get under the cap. The Chargers are healthy. So they can play this season with Mike Williams on that fifth-year option and be totally fine. And that's the flexibility that you get when you have a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal. All of a sudden, that allows you to take on cap hits that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. It allows you to pay players above market value, and that creates a better roster. Think about the Chiefs in 2019, right? And I've written about this example before. Sammy Watkins was on a $19 million cap hit. He was not a $19 million player at all whatsoever, but he was a season for them, and they won the Super Bowl. Do you think that the Chiefs regret paying Sammy Watkins $19 million and having that cap hit on their cap sheet? Absolutely not. But they had that flexibility because they had Patrick Mahomes, an all-world quarterback, on a rookie deal. So when we talk about why it's important to have a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal, these are the things that it allows you to do. To say, okay, well, Mike Williams, it's fine. We'll have him on a $15.68 million. We can have more flexibility as an organization because we can take on that cap hit, right? And then he's a free agent after the season. So we have no commitment to him after the season. Now, if you were in a position where you had to extend him, all of a sudden you're forced into a corner, you extend him, and now Mike Williams is on the books for 3 years before you can get out of that contract. And who knows what happens with him? Who knows if he plays up to that kind of contract? At least in this situation, they can take on 1 year of a little bit of a higher cap hit, and then they have the flexibility to move on from Mike Williams after next season and get a comp pick in free agency if he moves on. It allows you to have a lot more flexibility. It all stems from the rookie quarterback, but that's really where the situation is with Mike Williams. That's what it means that when I tweet out that his contract is guaranteed, that's what it means. They're not going to move on from him. They can't move on from him at this point. They were never going to move on from him because they think extremely highly of him as a player. And let me add this. The guy makes plays. Like anybody in this, and you could let me know in the chat, but anybody in this chat who has watched Chargers games knows that Mike Williams makes big-time plays in big-time moments. Okay? How many guys in free agency right now, and I saw people tweeting me this earlier today, well, you could have done more with the $15.68 million in free agency. Sure. I think that's a fair argument. But who are you getting that does what Mike Williams does? And let me know. If you can come up with a name in the chat, let me know. Who is it? Corey Davis? I don't think so. Kenny Galladay? I don't think so. Marvin Jones? I don't think so. Those guys aren't making those plays. Those guys aren't going up with 15 seconds left in the fourth quarter and catching a ball in triple coverage like Mike Williams did against the Saints. I mean, go watch the replay of that. I just did before I got on here. Go watch the replay, the highlight of that catch. That's a big-time play in a big-time moment. So he has value. And listen, like he's never going to be a guy that catches 80, 90 balls in a season. That's not who he is, right? But when the game's on the line and Justin Herbert's scrambling outside the pocket and he needs a 45-yard gain, chuck it up to Mike Williams, and that guy's going to get it. And he's done it time after time after time. Go back to the Chiefs game in Mexico City last year. Huge play at the end of that game from Phillip Rivers. Did it in the Broncos game from Phillip Rivers. Huge moment in the fourth quarter going up and making a play. So you guys are acting like his he's a scrub, and that paying him $15.68 million is completely out of this world crazy. It's a high cap hit for his production, but he's still a really, really good player. Not to mention the stuff that he does inside the building in terms of his work ethic, his toughness, the tone he sets as a player in the wide receiver room. All of those things are essential, and that adds to it. Tom Telesco at the end of the day is a huge culture guy, and having somebody on the roster like Mike Williams, who's going to play through a bum knee for 16 games, who's going to come back from an AC joint sprain in 2 weeks, these things matter to your culture. So you factor that in all together. That's a long-winded way of saying, listen, there's a lot of different threads that lead to a decision like this, but it does make sense, and there is an explanation for it. Yeah? Does that make sense? Let me know in the chat. I keep saying you guys. I mean, there's 250 people in here. I just don't say y'all. I'm from New York. All right, technically Connecticut, but New York City area. I don't say y'all. So also that was kind of mean. 5% of Chargers fans. Every one of you matters to me. That's why I say you guys. All right. Should we do some questions? Yeah, I'm spitting right now. Yeah, I need to get a podcast because when I get going, I used to grow up listening to New York sports radio. Legend Steve Summers used to fall asleep to him every night. When I get going, I get going. For sure. All right, let's do some questions. What's better, starting at the beginning? I kind of like the people that get in here early. Any chance we get a Derwin extension? No, so they're going to do the 5th-year option in May. Klesko basically already said that he's going to do that. So what do we got here? Ryan Suckup. Curtis Samuel signed a big deal. I kind of like what Washington in this offseason. William Jackson was a good signing. That D's really good. All right. What kind of contract do you think lands Adoree Jackson? So that's kind of interesting. Like, I was surprised at how much above Michael Davis Shaquille Griffin was. So Shaquille Griffin ended up at 3 years, like 40 and a half, I think was the eventual number. It was reported as 44 and a half, but that was like with incentives and stuff. I think the cap wise, it was 3 years, 40.5, which is a shade over 13 million. And then Michael Davis ended up at 25 and a half over 3, which is 8.5. So, I would think Adoree Jackson's closer to the Michael Davis level. Maybe $9 million a year, $10 million a year. That would make sense for the Chargers. I've included him in my top 10 because I still think he makes sense. Played well for the Titans at times, and can play inside, can play outside. Makes sense to serve as that cornerback 3 behind Chris Harris and Michael Davis. Yeah, I keep seeing Clowney. The Chargers are not going to sign Clowney. I just don't see that happening from a culture standpoint. Okay. Thoughts on bringing back Jeremiah Tachi? Yeah, I've thrown that around. He has he played for Staley in Denver, so that would make some sense. Why don't the Chargers do something? So, like I said, they hit their key points, right? They got 2 starters in the offensive line, which I've been saying was at least the minimum of what they needed to do in free agency. 2 starting offensive linemen, and they re-signed Michael Davis. And they made decisions on Hunter Henry and Rayshon Jenkins. And now they can sort of take a step back and see where they can find value. Now, I think tight end and third corner are the top 2 needs that they have to address right now. It seems to me like the fact they let Rayshon Jenkins walk, that Brandon Staley has watched Nasir Adderley's tape and it's like, okay, I can work with this guy. And it seems like Nasir Adderley would have the leg up on that free safety spot. But I still think they need to bring in a third safety because Staley does do a lot of 3 safety stuff. And once you bring in that third safety, then all of a sudden you can move Derwin James wherever you want. You can put him at linebacker, you can blitz him, you can do whatever, and then you have your 2 deep shell with the other 2 safeties. So I still didn't think they need to sign a safety, but I don't know if they necessarily need like an Anthony Harris level, like true starter. They could even find that safety in the draft. I still think Anthony Harris should be on their radar, and he's in my top 10 free agents remaining. But it seems to me like it's more likely that they would sort of address that in the draft and find somebody. I mean, they have 9 draft picks, and they're more flexible now that they've signed a couple O-line starters. So they can do a lot of different things, especially with those those 4 top 100 picks, because they got the comp pick at 97. All right. Lamp, Feeney, and Tevy. I think the likeliest of those 3 to come back and have a shot to start is Dan Feeney. And I think they can move him back to guard they have Lindsley now, so he's not going to play center. But like I've been saying on these chats before, Feeney to me is more of like a swing guard center backup, like a 6-man on an offensive line type guy that can play multiple spots. Forrest Lamp, he struggled last year. The only way he's going to get better is if he gets playing time. But the problem is you put him on the field and give him playing time, he's a liability. So that's why it's an issue with Forrest Lamp. If he can come back on a cheap deal, I could see him there as a depth piece, But I think Feeney's a better guard than Lamp is. More experienced too. Why is over the cap and SPO track so differently? Jason Fitzgerald runs over the cap, and he does a fantastic job. He has access to the agent database, so all the contracts in there are on point, and he is an expert in this stuff. I mean, he has every single nuance of salary cap and contracts nailed down. So the stuff you see on over the cap is going to be the correct cap hits, the correct contract structures, all of that kind of stuff. So if you guys want to do your own research on the cap stuff, definitely use over the cap because Jason does an absolutely outstanding job. I use it every single day. I'm on over the cap. So that's what I would use if I was you guys. What about right guard? Feeney could be back and they could put him there. They could draft Elijah Vera Tucker in the first round and look for a guard in the second round because there is a lot of depth at guard on the interior line. Draft Elijah Vera Tucker in the first round, and then at tackle, there's depth at tackle is what I meant to say. So Walker Little's a guy from Stanford who Walker Little is a really interesting prospect because he was like first round, top tackle off the board, no doubt. And then he tore his ACL in 19 and opted out at 20. So there isn't a lot of tape on him. It would be a high-risk play. If the Chargers don't sign a tackle in free agency, it seems like they'd have to go and get the best tackle available they can at 13. Maybe Elijah Vera Tucker's that guy. But yeah, I think it could make sense if they do tackle first round and then bring Feeney back at right guard. You're better. The idea is you bring in Lindsley, and the term a lot of people use for like really good centers is that it's a force multiplier, right? So everyone on the line is going to be better because you have an all-pro center. So the idea is, say you bring Feeney back or bring Lamp back, hypothetically, you put him next to an all-pro center, and you get a serviceable lineman as opposed to a below-average lineman. I think there's some logic to that. And it could work, right? It could work. All right. This is why we suck. We don't make good moves. We're always next year. I don't know if that's true. Resign Feeney and Lamp for cheap. Yeah, I think that could make sense. Love Perryman. Yeah. Denzel was a good player. He was a good player. He's a guy that set the tone defensively. He just hit the shit out of people. It was like once a game, if Denzel was healthy, he just came roaring through the hole and just freaking crushed somebody. He pancaked Mekhi Becton. Mekhi Becton is like 3 of me. He's enormous. The fact that, and Denzel's not like a tall guy either. That was a good play. I'll always remember that one. But yeah, wishing Denzel the best in Carolina for sure. All right. I'm getting down to the bottom here. Yeah, the Denzel hit was hilarious. All right, what else we got here? Dylan Radins. I think that's how you pronounce it. Radins, North Dakota State kid. Yeah, he's an option in the second round. I just feel like if you're going into it saying, like, okay, I'm drafting my starting left tackle, then it's got to be with your top pick. I don't think you can afford to wait for the second round. Like, you got to get the most talented guy that you can get. So, hell, if Rashawn Slater falls to 13, that would be a dream scenario for the Chargers. But Christian Darrisaw does some really nice things too, and he's more of your prototypical sized left tackle, super athletic. Yeah, he would be in the mix. And then I know a lot of people think Vera Tucker is going to project more as a guard in the NFL. It's sort of a situation where, like, he would be like a day one starter at guard. You plug him in, and boom, he's immediately serviceable, functional guy at that spot. Size-wise, less of a fit as a left tackle, but he played there last year and played well. So it's just a matter of putting the player in the best position to succeed. Personally, I don't know how the Chargers have him graded. I don't know if they look at him as a left tackle, if they look at him as a guard. Majority of people see him more as a guard. So my guess is that's how they would see him if they go in that direction. But if they go into the draft with the hole at left tackle, it seems like they'd have to, whoever they're drafting at 13 has to be the left tackle, the starting left tackle for 2021. Because they don't have that guy on the roster right now. You know, Trey Pipkins has a really interesting skill set, but I haven't seen enough to trust him as a starting left tackle. You know, right now he could, if he shows improvement, he could be relied on as, you know, swing tackle type guy if you have an injury. But that's also part of why they signed Filer, because he's played right tackle before, and now you sort of have a swing tackle that's also starting on your line at guard. That movement just made so much sense. And the contract. Oh, by the way, yeah, I've been tweeting this out, but I got the Filer contract number. So it's a $5 million cap hit this year. It was a $6 million signing bonus, and then it goes up. Where did I write this? Yeah, goes up to 7.5 in 22 and 8.5 in 23. Just a solid contract for a starting guard, a guy that's going to come in and be able to be a functional, serviceable player. Bulaga over to the left side now. Don't see that. And I guess it, like, you know, I really can't see that happening. I'm gonna have to make more coffee. Stay to get this vaccine though. What else we got here? J.C. Jackson worth a second. You don't really see that. You don't really see guys that get that kind of tender. So J.C. Jackson's Patriots could put a second-round tender on him. What that means, if the Chargers were to sign him, they would then have to give a second-round pick to the Patriots. So you're not just giving up cap space; you're giving up a draft pick too. So you have to really, really love a player to do that. And, yeah, you don't really see that happening. So I don't think that's an option. Replacement for Ty Long. The Chargers do not need a replacement for Ty Long. Ty Long is a good punter. He was under siege last year. He had no blocking up front. I mean, every game there was multiple punts that were almost blocked, and they couldn't cover anybody after he punted the ball. So you look at their net average; it's worse in the league, right? But they were 31st in punt return average allowed, and Ty Long had no time back there to punt the ball. So I don't think it's not a punter issue. It's getting players on special teams, both from a coverage perspective and a blocking perspective, that can create an environment where a punter can actually execute. What else we got? What are we going to do at tight end? So yeah, I've written a bunch about this. I kind of like Dan Arnold from the Cardinals. Young, he's like 26, coming off a career season. He's a converted wide receiver, so he wouldn't be that blocking guy. But let's say you go get Dan Arnold and draft Tommy Tremble, the kid out of Notre Dame, who's already an NFL ready-made run blocker. Go look up his tape. He can move people. You know, the downside on him is he hasn't really proven himself as a receiver, but that's what you can do. You can get a receiving tight end, a guy who's going to be able to be a big red zone target. Arnold, 3 of his 4 touchdowns were in the red zone this year. You bring in a blocker, and you can do some things. So that's what I think it's going to be, is 1 free agent and 1 draft pick. But there's certainly a scenario where the team is higher on Donald Parham than I am. I haven't seen enough from him as a blocker to think that he can be relied on as, definitely not as a number 1 or even as a number 2. I think he's more of like a gadget red zone mismatch piece. But maybe they are seeing stuff from him that I am not, and they think he can be that number 2 tight end. And in that case, maybe they're doing one or the other. Maybe it's just a free agent or just a draft pick. But there's no question they have to do some work there. Like they only have 1 tight end on the roster, so they got to do some work. Tommy, make them tremble. I like that nickname. Seattle got Gabe Jackson, 2021 pick. Thanks for the heads up. Who was that? Simon G. Thanks, brother. All right. Raiders are trading Gabe Jackson to the Seahawks for a 2021 pick. Interesting. I'm curious to see what that pick is. Can't be too high, right? I feel like the Raiders were threatening to release Gabe Jackson. So, all right, we'll keep an eye on that. Again, just organizationally, and this is something that you guys should understand, you can really apply this to any offseason as long as Tom Telesco is the general manager. He is very rarely going to trade draft picks for players, veteran players. He values rookie deals too much, and he trusts in his scouting department too much to do that very often. So that's why you're seeing all these other teams make draft pick deals for players. Just organizationally, that's not something that Telesco will do. It's not something that he believes in. You can have whatever opinion you want on that, but that's just the nature of the organization. Well, Schefter, so someone's saying it's that Jackson and Seahawks is fake news, but Schefter reported that, so definitely not. All right, what else we got? Yeah, why are the Raiders imploding their offensive line? I do not know. I wish I knew the answer to that, but Rodney Hudson's really, really good player. So I don't know why they did that. You got to go to our Raiders live chat. Ask that question. Alex Leatherwood. If they do go tackle, if they do wait for the tackle the second round, I like Walker Little. And then James Hudson is a guy there. And then I like a lot of people are really high on Sam Cosmi. I know but he's a guy that could be there. Guy that some people are projecting him as. Like he could easily be there in the second round. But like the way tackles work is the guys that are gonna be able to come in and start right away, typically, you got to go get him in the first round. If you wait till the second round to draft somebody, you're gonna end up with like a really athletic guy who's a little bit of a work in process, right? Oh, Patrick Peterson just signed. Going to the Vikings on 1 year, $10 million deal. I never thought he was an option for the Chargers. It would never make sense to replace Casey Hayward, an aging quarterback, with another aging cornerback. But he got 10 mil. 1 year, 10 mil. Good job by his agents. I wouldn't have given him that much. So yeah, like when you're in the second round, you're going to end up with really athletic guys that need some work. You're not going to get like the polished left tackle that can come in and start right away, which is what the Chargers might end up needing if they don't sign anybody else. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. I would still think that they're going to bring somebody in at some point, but you can let the dust settle. And there's a number of veteran tackles that are out there, even like Rick Wagner, if they want to just like poach every single Packers offensive lineman that they can. Like that's a guy that's out there. Dennis Kelly is a guy that's out there, and Riley Reef and all the guys I listed before. So they can wait. Oh, so it's a 5th rounder for Gabe Jackson. Damn. I do that deal. Do you guys do that deal? 5th for Gabe Jackson? I think I do that. Yeah. I think I do that deal. Like, who are you drafting in the 5th round that's going to be better than Gabe Jackson for the length of Justin Herbert's rookie deal? Just for context, they drafted Joe Reed in the 5th round last year. It's actually a good question. Someone's asking about Gabe Jackson's contract. Let's look. And just for reference, I'm going straight to Over the Cap because that's where I get all my information from. Oh, I guess they already factored him in as a cut. So we can't see what his cap it is. They'll update that. All right, we'll have to get back on the get back to you on that cap it. Yeah, Rappaport just tweeted this too. What are the Raiders doing, man? I'm so confused. Their offense was fine last year. Like they were a pretty efficient offense. They had a good offensive line, and then they just blow it all up. I don't get that. Okay, love this question from Stephen Moore. What do I think about the new OC, Joe Lombardi? So from everything I've gathered, so obviously, and he mentions our question asker Stephen Moore says, "Are there any concerns since he didn't do well with the Lions?" So Joe Lombardi is a really, really smart coach, right? So I think he's going to get along with Justin Herbert really well. Another very cerebral guy. Like Justin is going to be able to take a lot onto his plate. He's going to be able to process a lot of information. He's going to be able to talk about football at a very high level because that's just how he operates. He's a very, very intelligent guy. So I think they are going to mesh in that way. Another thing that I've gathered is that Joe Lombardi has certainly learned from the mistakes he made in Detroit when it did not go well. Got fired less than 2 years into his stint there. He knows he has to be more flexible. He knows he has to adjust more. And there is a history, right, of offensive coordinators being very particular at one point in their career and becoming a lot more flexible and becoming much more willing to adjust. Brian Daboll with the Bills is a perfect example. He was a Patriots guy, coached under Belichick, coached under Josh McDaniels, and wanted to run the Patriot system wherever he went. And he bounced around a lot as a play caller. With the Chiefs, with the Dolphins, with the Browns, didn't really work anywhere. He learns through that process, through those failures, okay, I have to be a lot more flexible in terms of what I implement in my offense. It can't be my way or the highway. It has to be a lot of ideas and a willingness to adapt and mold my offense to the personnel I have. He gets to Buffalo. That's the approach he takes with Josh Allen. And our Robert Mays at The Athletic, we did a feature on Brian Daboll last season. Cole Beasley came in as a free agent and was like, hey, I used to run this package called the Mustang package when I was at SMU. And there's this specific package of plays that I really like. Daboll says, great, let's take those and put them into the offense. That's not something he would have done in his previous stints. So there is a history of offensive coaches growing, adapting, molding. And I also think that Lombardi working with Staley is going to be a great benefit to him. They met 15 years ago at Mercyhurst College. I'll have a big feature about Staley and Lombardi's relationship, so make sure you subscribe. But I have faith that Lombardi is going to have success here. He's got a very talented quarterback, and then he was a big part of the success with the Saints. Now, a lot of it was Drew Brees and Sean Payton, but being around successful offensive coaches, successful offensive players, a winning culture, that does matter. And so I think he learned from his experiences in Detroit, and I think he's actually going to have some success here. All right, talk about Brockers. You asked that earlier. I'm sorry, I forgot to answer that. Okay, yeah. So I feel like the Chargers are actually pretty good up front, right? They got Linval Joseph at nose tackle. They got Jerry Tillery at one defensive end spot. And then Justin Jones is a really, 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 really good player. Like, I love Justin Jones. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But that's a guy who's like right on the cusp of breaking out and having becoming like a big name in the NFL. He has that kind of skill set. I mean, he can get after the passer. He is a beast against the run. He has these splash plays on tape where you're like, oh my God, okay, this guy's got it. And he's got the work ethic, man. Like, this guy wants it. This guy wants it. He wants to be great. And I think Brandon Staley is going to get that out of him. So up front, they're okay. Now, can they add some depth in terms of rotational defensive linemen? Sure. But I think it's sort of an indication. Like, if Brandon Staley wasn't saying absolutely, let's give up a 7th round pick for Michael Brockers, then that's probably a strong indication of how he feels about him. Now, I think he's a good player, but again, we go back to the organizational philosophy of not really going to give up draft picks for players. And Brockers is also signing an extension with the Lions. So did the Chargers really want to extend him? So they have pieces. And then obviously, I mean, Joey Bosa is an edge player, but they're going to be doing a lot of different stuff with their fronts. So Joey will be on the line a lot. You know, that's where he thrives in terms of using his hands. So they've got pieces, you know. They've got pieces from a defensive line perspective. You know, they can always bring back Damian Square on a 1-year deal. Guy who's been here for a long time, very familiar with the organization, can play multiple positions, super versatile. So I think they're okay there. Certainly wouldn't be surprised if they go out and sign a defensive lineman, but with Brockers, I think that's really what you're looking at. They didn't have a huge need there, and organizationally, they're not really going to give up first draft picks for him, and they probably would have had to extend him if they trade for him. So, all right, what else you got here? Oh, by the way, guys, for those that subscribe, We're doing a live chat on Monday. It won't be a video. We don't do that at The Athletic, but it'll be a written live chat. You guys can pop into this live chat, ask your questions. I answer them. Those that do subscribe, you guys know that it's a fun time. So let everyone else know that doesn't subscribe that those are a ton of fun, worth subscribing for. And yeah, same deal as the last couple of days, guys. Link below, $1 a month. So you'll have the live chat to look forward to on Monday. I got a big feature coming out on Tuesday. I'm doing the free agent resets every single morning with everything you need to know. Anybody that's subscribed already can come in the chat and tell everyone how much information is in there. It is literally everything you could possibly want to know about the Chargers to get you ready for that day of free agency. Staley has gutted this team. That is just not accurate. So below in the description, there is a link. Click it. $1 a month. $1. That's it. Can you buy anything for $1 these days? I don't even think you can buy a Hershey's bar for $1. It's like $1.50 or something like that. Can't even buy like a can of Diet Coke for $1 anymore. But you know what you can get for $1? Subscription to The Athletic. How about that? All right. We're at 42 minutes. I gave you my spiel. Let's do a few more questions. I'm going to have to make more coffee. So much coffee this week. But I'm doing it for you guys. Grinding. Giving you the content that you need to be the smartest Chargers fans on the face of the earth. All right. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Let's get through some more questions. We're rolling. All right. Do you think they are fine rolling with Stick as the backup? So we got into this yesterday. I think that they'll bring in a third quarterback just because Stick hasn't gotten enough playing time in games. You know, they were really hoping he was going to get on the field for preseason games last year, but they obviously those didn't happen because of COVID. So, you know, they're going to need to sign somebody as a contingency plan, you know, in case there aren't preseason games or whatever happens. If Stick gets on the field during preseason games, they don't see everything that they need to see. You know, I think it would make sense for them to bring in a guy with some experience who could be a contingency plan. I wouldn't devote a ton of the cap space to it because I like Stick. I think he's got a good skill set. And they drafted him in the 5th round because they were grooming him to be a long-term backup. So we'll see. I would expect a move at quarterback before training camp, though. Okay, so Clowney has a reputation of not being the hardest worker, not being the most committed player. And you can go and read about this anywhere. I mean, it's just kind of how he's been as a player, and that does not align with what the Chargers want. Chargers want self-starters, hard workers, good people off the field, motivated. Like, you go look at who they draft, especially in the later rounds. These are guys that are leaders. These are guys that do a ton of work off the field. They're motivated, all of these kinds of things. So it just doesn't align with the culture. And that's why typically the Chargers don't really take chances on these guys that are looking for a second chance in the league that have bad reputations or whatever. They just don't go after those guys. And it's because Tom Telesco believes that culture is essential to a winning organization. So that's why. That's the basic Cliff Notes version on why I don't think they would ever go after Clowney. Okay, Stick versus Trey Lance. I mean, Trey Lance has a howitzer for a right arm and is like 6'5". Stick's like 6'1". Doesn't have a fantastic arm. So that's why you're seeing different projections on those guys. All right. We're about to hit 45 minutes. That's my time. Should we do a couple more questions? Does culture win rings? Absolutely. How do you think the Patriots won all those rings? Obviously, they had Tom Brady, but a lot of it was do your job and attention to detail. That's how the Patriots won, is being so hyper-focused on attention to detail. Every minute detail, Bill Belichick coached into his players, right? And that's why they're so good in situational football. Now, last year was a wash. I know people are going to be in the mentions and be like, well, they were terrible last year and Brady left. They had awful players. Their roster was bare. So let's see what happens this year when they went out and spent some money in free agency. Someone keeps coming at me with Jesse James. Meh. That's how I feel about Jesse James. I would go with Kyle Rudolph or Dan Arnold. Those are the two guys. Jared Cook, too. I know you guys don't like Jared Cook, but he has a lot of connections to the Chargers staff. Live taco review. Hell yeah. We should do that. I'll get some tacos. All right, guys. I'm going to push my stuff one more time because that's why I'm doing these live streams. I want you guys to join The Athletic. In the description below this video, there is a link. If you click that link, you get The Athletic. Everything on the site. The best sports writing on the internet for $1 a month. That is $12 a year. That's it. I spend like $60 on my sushi order. It's $12 for the year. $1 a month. All right? Here's what we got going on right now on the Chargers page specifically, because that's what I know you guys want. Chargers content. Here's what we got. Every day this week. That'll be tomorrow, and then Friday as well. I'm doing a free agency reset. Everyone in the chat that already subscribes can tell you all the good stuff that's in there. But I'll give you a quick version, okay? Every morning I'm giving you the thoughts on the moves the Chargers made, thoughts on the moves they didn't make. Every single relevant topic related to the Chargers and free agency is in there. I have my top 10 remaining free agents with explanations on the new guys that I'm putting in there. It's everything you need to know. You wake up tomorrow morning, whenever you wake up, you pull that thing up, it'll get you ready. Everything you need to know, and then you're beyond educated on everything relevant to the Chargers. That's what we're doing this week. I'm also writing on every single signing. Haven't been writing on those last 2 days, obviously, because there's been no signings. But if there's a signing, you're getting immediate reaction on that. I got features. I got analysis coming all week, obviously. And then next week, too, I got a big feature coming Tuesday on Brandon Staley, on Joe Lombardi. It's going to be fantastic. You guys are going to love it. So if you aren't a part of The Athletic yet and you want to join, $1 a month. It is a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer. I'm telling you. All right. That's my pitch. I should have gotten to like car sales or something. I feel like I'd be really good at this. You get a car. You get a car. You get a car. What do we think? I'm out of coffee. $1 is not expensive. Come on. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining the stream. We'll be doing one of these tomorrow, and we'll be doing one of them on Friday. And then I'm sort of going to figure out what I'm going to do with them moving forward. It seems like we're still getting some good engagement, but probably not going to do them like every single day when nothing's going on. So might, do them monthly, might do them weekly. Hit me up on Twitter and just let me know like how you're liking these and like how often you want them to do it. I saw some comments saying do them like weekly. So we'll see. If people keep joining them and we keep interacting and we keep having a good time on here, then I'll keep doing them. So that'll be a next week decision. But again, thank you guys for joining, and we will talk tomorrow.